many are still grieving. Some families will be lost to one another forever. To those of you who face the difficulties of reconnecting with family and establishing ongoing relationships, we say sorry. We offer this apology in the hope that it will assist your healing and in order to shine a light on a dark period of our nation's history. To those who have fought for the truth to be heard, we hear you now.
You're listening to Adopt Perspective Podcast, a podcast for anyone affected by adoption. I'm your host and president of Jigsaw Queensland, Jo Sparrow. This podcast is a production of Jigsaw Queensland Post-Adoption Support Service. However, the views expressed are those of the people participating and not necessarily Jigsaw Queensland. The podcast discusses adult themes and listener discretion is advised. Hi, I'm Jo Sparrow, your host and president of Jigsaw Queensland. One of the things I'm reminded of time and again on this podcast is that while adoption stories often share common themes, every experience is deeply personal and unique, and today's guest is a powerful example of that. Brett Kable was born in Nambour, Queensland in 1975 and adopted at 6 weeks of age into a family along with an adopted sister. It wasn't until Brett reunited with his mother that he realised that his story was different to most. He joins us today to share that story along with reflections on a recent pilgrimage to Spain where he hiked the Camino Trail, a journey of both physical endurance and an opportunity to reflect. Brett isn't the first adoptee that I've heard of being drawn to the Camino. Brett, welcome to Adopt Perspective. I'm so grateful to have you join us.
Thanks for having me, Jo.
Brett, I'd love to start by hearing a little about your early life. What was it like for you growing up as an adopted person?
I can look back now and realize it was pretty weird. But to us, it was just normal. My sister and I were brought up knowing that we were adopted. It wasn't like a big thing. And because mum and dad both have adopted people in their family. So it's always been around. Dad's got a nephew, so a cousin of mine who's adopted in, and he had a sister that was adopted in, and my mum had a nephew adopted out who came back in. So yeah, it's always just been like it hasn't been a big dramatic thing for us. It was always everyone else that sort of tiptoed around it and stuff. So yeah.
It sounds a little similar to my growing up experience in that I had eventually a niece and a nephew who were adopted into my family, and I had 3 cousins that were adopted as well. But it wasn't something that we talked about amongst ourselves really when I was a kid growing up. Did you guys talk about it?
No, even now, my sister and I still don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Because Dad was in the Air Force, so we traveled all around Australia. And security became 4 boxes and a backpack, and yeah, like it was always just like I guess we sort of saw it as us 4 against the world, and so yeah, that's just how we treated it. So it wasn't really something that was actively talked about. I remember a few things, like I was home with the measles, and there was something on TV. I think it was the Ray Martin show or something. And something on adoption came on, and mum just sort of said, "Hey, you're adopted." And I remember turning around and going, "Yeah, mum, I know. That's why I'm watching. Shut up." So it was just sort of that everyday sort of thing for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was never really actively spoken about.
Yeah. So you said you moved around a fair bit because of military life. I moved around a bit too. It was funny because my siblings, who are all much older than me and biological children to my parents, they didn't move. They were all in the one spot until, the adults. But for me, it was a bit of a destabilizing experience, that moving. I think I went to 5 schools in 5 years or something. How was that for you?
Oh, look, yeah, I started school in Malaysia, in Penang, in an international school, and I remember being like one of 10 or 20 white kids at school. And that was sort of daunting, because I remember I remember things like dad just going to get the milk and me just standing by the car. I would have been about 5. And he came back and all these Asians are over, touching my hair and stuff because they hadn't seen red hair before.
Mm-hmm.
And then, from that to downtown Newcastle or Raymond Terrace near Newcastle, and then Darwin, and then Sale, and then Wagga, and then Sale. So it was, I guess I didn't really, I didn't see the long term sort of not damage, but just the way that it was shaping me. I didn't really pay attention until I was about 15, 16, when I started to realize that, hang on, most people have actually got friends since they were 2 or 3. I don't.
Yeah.
And that sort of, that was something that I started to kind of go, that's probably not normal. And then getting to Wagga and realizing that, almost everyone there had only been to Wagga, or they might have been to Sydney. And here I am, 15, and I know the world's round. I've lived overseas. I've traveled, extensively already. That was kind of, that was pretty destabilizing. Because I didn't really, as I said, I didn't really pay attention until about then of what had been going on up here.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you live and learn.
Yeah. So the narrative that we're told as children about our adoption can quite often have a long-lasting impact on how we view adoption and view the world. I'm wondering what you were told about your adoption and biological family, if anything, while you were growing up.
So we got this, mum and dad got this letter telling her all about my birth mother. And it was my birth father had gone, and I think he was going to, I think he said he was going to uni, but that he was English. And my birth mother couldn't look after me because she wanted to further her studies, her university studies. And that was it. And yeah, when I found my birth mother when I was 24, to find out that was complete and utter lies. That was a moment. That was definitely a moment.
It's funny how like we get given these snippets or breadcrumbs of information, sometimes true, sometimes not. I can remember when I read that letter myself. I actually snuck it. My mum had got it and said, "I'll wait until you're older," which was a huge mistake because then I went and found it and read it anyway and just didn't tell her. But it had said in my head, I'd always been told my mother was probably too young to keep me, which is what had happened a lot. But then when I read the letter, it said she was 18 and that my father was 21. And so my adoptive mother had been 19 when she'd had her first child, within the constraints of marriage. So, and I was thinking, hang on, they weren't young. So in my head, even though now as an adult, I know that's very young. Yeah. But at the time, it kind of messed with me a bit because I was thinking, well, that wasn't young. That could have kept me. It changed things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how to put this. I never have. I remember similar sort of thing. Like I snuck in and read the letter and went, okay, that's interesting. And mentally, I was very, very rebellious, and I just had a thing against anything authority. And I remember going and like I'm just going through life, and it was just this inner, I don't know, this inner voice, and I just knew 100% that I was going to meet my birth mother. There's no hesitation. I don't know how I knew, I just knew. But my birth father, it was always again, it was just instinct that he had done a runner. And I had always said to myself that I'm never going to do that. I'll always stand and take whatever's coming, good or bad. And I guess that sort of really shaped who I am. without even realizing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like I understand. Like it's just some things you look at and you go, is that good? And then you kind of,
Hmm.
yeah, actually it kind of was.
Yeah. So, had you always felt that curiosity about your biological family, or was there a moment in particular that you remember it kicking in for you?
Always,
Yeah.
always, because it was pretty hard to sort of hide in the family because it was so like we had so many people adopted in and out. But also I was the only one with red hair.
Hmm.
So that kind of was it was sort of really hard to sort of hide from for mum and dad. Um, but I was always curious, and it was little things like I didn't know why, but I was always really drawn to Irish and Scottish mythology and Viking mythology. I had no idea why. Um, and little things like that. It was just that little voice starts churning, and you're sort of looking at everyone else, going, "Why aren't you interested in this?" Okay,
Hmm.
and yeah, and it was other little things like you like I don't know, like other people who aren't adopted, they get this little blueprint of who they are. They can look at mum and dad and they can get and they sort of there's a little picture there for them and they go, okay, that's where I get all this from. When you're adopted, you're just kind of given a blank piece of paper and a crayon and go nuts. And
Yeah.
so you kind of left sitting there just kind of going, I don't know, I like that. Why? Oh, so yeah, I kind of always had that instinct of I've got to try and find this. But again, I don't know why. It just was there.
Yeah, that building of identity is it's just fascinating when you think about it because I've sort of met maybe adopted people who sit in two camps. Some start to really full on differentiate from themselves from their family and really lean into figuring out what it is they're interested in, what they like, that kind of stuff, and they really heavily claim all of that. And then there's others who probably I sat in that camp where I couldn't figure it out and had very strong, bold personalities around me. And so I started to just lean into what they liked. And I felt like I was wearing clothes that didn't fit right the whole time, very uncomfortable in my clothing because it just didn't fit.
Yeah, it feels like a mask. Like
Yes.
you're acting with this mask on, and behind you're sort of sitting there going, I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Like,
Hmm.
but I guess it just sort of it's I think it's an age thing. Like as you get older, you start to get more comfortable with who you are and your circumstances, the cards you're being dealt. So yeah, as I got older, it sort of that mask started to fade away. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, by the time I was about 20, 22, I'd started to sort of realize who I was, and um, all that identity stuff had started to formulate a bit harder.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it wasn't until I met my birth mother that things really sort of kicked into gear.
Well, let's get to that then. What led you to reconnecting with her and how did it unfold?
So m- I've got a younger sister. She's 6 years younger than me, and she's adopted as well. And I'd known that her birth mother had found us, but mum and dad had said no, not until she's 18.
Hmm.
And I sort of sat there and went, you know what? I don't think I will either. I don't want her to. I don't want to go through what I'm going to go through and then have her stressing around. Like I want us to do this in the same year, so we both get it done. Um, and so yeah, I was 24, um, and about to get married actually, and um, I I wrote to the Queensland the births, deaths, and marriages.
Hmm.
I just said, "This is who I am. This is where I was born, and can you help me out?" And they sent back a form, and they said, "Fill this in and give us $50." And like, okay. And then literally 2 weeks later, I'm looking at her name and address, and I'm like,
Ooh,
"Whoa, that's happened very quickly."
yeah, very
Uh,
fast.
yeah, and I got a letter from her. the next week. And it was the first time, and I'll never forget it. I looked at that letter and I saw my own handwriting.
Mm-hmm.
In school, I'd always been, yelled at by teachers and it's got to get neater and stuff. And I just couldn't. And it wasn't until then that I'm literally looking at my own handwriting and I'm like, are you kidding me? Um, so yeah, I just, I think it was a Friday or Saturday, and I just sat there and just went to the pub and got a bit loose and then came home and went, right, let's just do it. So I just called her up and yeah, I said, oh, hello, is Therese Hawken there? And she just dropped to the floor and I just heard this, wow. She knew exactly who I was straight away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was years later that I found out is because apparently I sound very much like my birth father, and I do.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there was a lot of just enormous moments. But the best thing we ever did was after like that initial contact, I think it was the next week, we sort of said on the phone, I'm not going anywhere, you're not going anywhere. Like we found each other. We got the rest of our lives to sort this out. But we've got this shot to make sure everyone around us is okay. And so that was our focus. We sort of put ourselves on the back burner and sort of went to work on everyone else and making sure that they were okay. Um, and I think that was the best thing because yeah, now there's no problems. There's no anger. There's no issues from any quarter. So yeah, it went pretty well. But it was the next year. She came down and met me in person with my little brother and my little half brother. And yeah, that was 20. Oh crap, I'm getting old, 26 years ago. So yeah.
I know all full well the mix of emotions that can come up during reunions, although sometimes very hard to identify them because they're just rushing around like, rapids in the background. Were there any particular challenges along the way that you noticed or particularly emotionally?
Yeah, huge. It was the changes because I was young. It was the changes that were happening in me, and that
Mm,
mask that I mentioned earlier had started to fall away. I wasn't now guessing who I was. I had half that drawing. I had half that blueprint. So there was a lot of confidence starting to come through. And I noticed the wife, I mean, or the ex-wife now, she just couldn't cope. Um, she had this impression that I was going to run off with this new family. Um, and so there was a lot of like little things like that that sort of, well, not little, they were massive at the time, but yeah, there was just things like that that sort of started to alter. Um, yeah, in the friends group, I was always just the quiet one, just sort of, kicking in the background. And I wasn't now. I was, as I said, I wasn't guessing. I was saying, this is who I am. So yeah, that was probably the biggest thing is just those changes in myself and how they affected other people.
yeah. Yes, it's a lot when you think about it. And it's a story I hear a lot that partners and family members can feel threatened
Yep.
and worried about what it means for their relationship. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, as I said, like there's no hard feelings. Like we were very young. She's now married with kids, and good luck to her. But yeah, like it was just we were young, and it was when you're young, you've got that. There's a lot of passion behind your emotions. So yeah, she just freaked out, and that was that. Like so,
Mhm.
yeah. But it happens, yeah. So it's I don't mean this the wrong way, but it's a small price to pay for what I gained.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, as I said, that confidence is everything, and especially in yourself and who you are. Yeah, that just altered everything for me. So, yeah.
Yeah. So this brings us to the unique part of your story. What did you discover when you reunited with your mother? And well, let's just start there. What did you discover?
So, the first thing I discovered was that I was what's considered forced adopted. Um, she was only 16, and it was expected of her to give me up. Um, and that, that's a little thing to take in. It was like, okay, that's society sort of telling you. And then I found, and then Therese sat there and just said, "Oh, by the way, I'm adopted too," and I'm like,
Mm.
"What?" And she's forced adopted as well. And so the
Yeah.
pair of us have. It's been good in one way because there's been a lot that I haven't had to say or explain because she gets it, she understands.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, kind of as we got to know each other and I grew and we both grew older, finding out that there's not many, if any, um, stories like that. Um, and then going through the family that I knew at the time and finding out there was like 8 people, I think, related to me on all sides of the family that were adopted. Yeah, it's kind of just that little head spin of just, hang
Mm.
on, this is this, how is this our normal? Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, but finding that out was, yeah, that was a lot to take in. That society had done it twice to us, to
Hmm.
the same family. That was, yeah. But it's all right. It all ends well. Um, we got our own back, as they say. Um,
It's It's interesting, as you say, you don't hear a lot like a double adoption scenario like that. But I've been privileged to hear so many people's stories now, and it's quite often that I do hear that there's been multiple generations of like fractured relationships between parents. Even in my own situation, my
yeah,
mother was separated from her mother owing to mental illness many times from birth. And I've heard other stories like that too, children that were taken into care, then going on to have children that were placed for adoption. So um, certainly, there could be a bit of that intergenerational thing sort of running through as well. Yeah.
yeah. It's just a lot to take in. Like, not
Oh,
only,
yeah.
of course, that there's two versions of you that have it's happened to,
Yeah.
um, but it was we had some good times along the way. We She went to a adoption conference here in Melbourne, and I rocked up. I just said, "Oh, I'll turn up. I'm in Melbourne," and I'll never forget. Like, she was obviously happy to see me, and there's hugs and stuff, but there was just this. I don't know. It was like you could hear a pin drop as all the other like mothers and people were sort of realizing who I was. Like,
Hmm.
um, which led to a lot of questions and stuff. But oddly, the next day there was nobody. They had, I don't know why, but they had just sort of like pushed her aside a bit. And that was sort of interesting to watch. And it was, I sort of take it as from their head, they think that she's got the big happy ending. And, you know, oh, well, you're not one of us now. But that's not the case. Like, there was so much going on in the background, that we're not advertising. We just sort of, we'll just deal with this. And for her and for me, at that stage, I hadn't found my birth father. She hadn't met her birth mother. Um, so yeah, there was a lot of things going on that other people
Yeah.
sort of don't realize.
Yeah. I'm wondering, did you guys have like some support during your reunion from friends, family, or professionals?
Nope.
No.
With neither of us have had support in any way from anyone.
Yeah.
Um, it's different, like, because I mean, I've got support from my family, mum and dad. They're awesome. My sister, if I ever need her. Um, but yeah, there's just, I mean, how do you start talking to mates about this?
Mhm.
And the few times I have, it's always been typical Australia. Oh, it just sounds like you need help, mate. Or come on, let's just go have a beer. Um, and that was it. Like that was their version of support.
Mm.
So yeah, and for her it was something similar. Like there's really no one that you can sort of sit there and talk to. Um, and it was years later, and this will just show you the irony of it. Um, it was after the apology, which she'd been a big part of. Um, the I think it was the Australian Department of Psychology or someone, like one of those crew, said, "Oh my God, we don't have anything for forced adoption," and they're going through trying to put some sort of package together for the doctors, and they go to the National Archives and go, "Oh, well, there's a couple of videos here from that without consent um, thing, and so we'll just get one of them." They choose her,
Mm-hmm.
and so our story was used briefly. She said no, like get that off. But it's sort of ironic that they choose our story to use people like to use as a training guide when we had no help ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Even when she adopted me out, like there was no one came knocking to see if she was okay. It was just there you go, forget.
Yeah, get on with your life. You'll have children of your own one day. They'd say that kind
Yeah,
of thing. Yeah.
yeah, and it's that sort of mentality that is still prevalent. Like people just sort of sit there and go, "Ah, well," and that's it. Like so, yeah, there was no help, but that's all right. We did a lot of work ourselves, and I sort of sit there and think that yeah, it was long, but it was good.
Mm-hmm.
Because as I said, like we managed to do it pretty healthily along the way.
Mm-hmm. So as you began to piece together your story and stories, were there things that surprised you, like similarities between you guys, apart from your handwriting?
Yeah, we look pretty similar.
You do?
Oh yeah.
I've met your mother, yes.
My brothers and sisters, we like the four of us all look pretty similar.
Yeah.
Um, Personality wise, we're as different as chalk and cheese. Oh no, me and my sister are pretty similar. She's a teacher as well. But there was just little things like we both we both love red wine. It's a small thing, but for us, we're kind of sitting there going, "Oh, okay." Um, uh, the ties to religion were a bit weird. I remember mum and dad thought I was actually going to be a priest when I grew up because, and I didn't realize, but the first book I read was the Bible, and apparently I read it every night. Um, and then finding out that your grandfather was a priest and all these other things, you're kind of sitting there going,
Your biological grandfather was a priest.
yeah,
Wow. Okay.
like so all those little things, you're kind of sitting there going, what's going on here? Like just the coincidences, more than anything. Just yeah, some events are on the same day, and yeah, just all these little idiosyncrasies of just everyday life that people sort of think are just sort of just a thing.
Hmm.
We just sort of sit there and just notice all of them, and just kind of
Hmm.
sitting there going, "What's going on here?" Like, yeah, it's been pretty weird, but pretty awesome as well.
Yeah.
Um, but I think the weirdest part was when I met my birth father, and that was where the world just kind of went upside down.
Well, can you tell us about that?
So her birth mother had died,
Hmm.
and she was in Adelaide, and she called me up and told me, and she goes, "Look, I don't know. I kind of want to go, but I don't want to step on toes because she's got a sister, and she had known, but her two brothers didn't." And she goes, "I don't want to step on toes," and I just sort of said, "Look, if you don't go, you're going to regret it. I think we owe it to you, and you owe it to yourself to go." So we did. Her and my brother, we went and crashed the funeral on St. Patrick's Day, no less. And being the good little Irish boys we are, me and my brother sat in the back row with a tip flask. Um, and while we were there, like we did that, and then the next day, um, some of her relations that she knows showed us around town and stuff, and I'm finding out that my grandfather owned massive tracts of land in Adelaide and built an exact replica of the pub that he knew back in Ireland. And there's streets and stuff named after him, which was kind of a big headspin for a kid that had traveled around the world to see a section so entrenched. And then while we were there, I kind of looked at her and I went, "We've got to go and see my birth father," because I knew I'd met him, and hadn't met him, but I'd talked to him. I knew where he was. Um, and so a while back we'd found him via Ancestry. Um, I put my auntie in, and I thought she was dead, so I changed her to dead. And she sent me a message just saying, "Who are you? And by the way, I'm not dead." And so a couple of messages and a phone call, and I kind of said, "Look, you're taking this very well." Like, and she just said, "You're not the first." And I'm like, "What?"
Mhm.
And she goes, "Yeah, you've got a cousin, and he's had a kid come out of the woodwork, and we've been expecting you." And I'm like, "Oh." So when we got to Adelaide, and I said, "Look, we're going to go do this." There, you could see the look in her eyes of just, "Oh crap." Um, but we went, and the first words out of his mouth to her was, "I'm sorry,"
Mm.
and that just blew her away. Like, um, but as I said to him, like, it's not, I don't want anything from you. I just want to have a beer with you and start getting to know you. And that's how we have, which has been pretty awesome. And then looking through his family tree, uh, we found that his great grandmother, the great grandfather, had married my dad's great grandmother, and that dad was like a third cousin.
Your adoptive father?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. If everyone in the country I could have been given to, I get given to a third cousin.
Yeah.
Which
Wow.
and that was a head spin because growing up, I mean, and you probably would have heard something similar. There was always that joke of just, "Oh, geez, he looks like you, Daryl," and Dad sort of sitting there going, "Yeah, okay," and it was sort of like an in joke of just between the
Yeah.
we have just, "Yeah, okay, sure we do, mate."
Yeah.
And now to sort of sit there and go,
Mm.
"Yeah, yeah."
Oh, what's the chances?
I know it's pretty crazy. It's been pretty crazy. And Dad was good with it. He just sort of chuckled and went, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah," and he goes, "Huh, okay, that's pretty cool," and that was it. Um, so yeah, it was yeah. As I said, adoption's always just been it is what it is sort of thing for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it was kind of uh, I don't know. It was sort of like an anchoring for me to sort of be able to look at mum and dad now and go, actually, we are related, which was
Hmm.
pretty damn cool, I must admit. But yeah, the odds of it are a million to one.
It really is. I mean, that's incredible.
Um, but again, it's not the first random thing. Like when my
No.
sister met her birth mother, she found out that her best friend at high school was her cousin, and they had no idea. So yeah, it's those sort of million to one coincidences seem to
Hmm.
happen to us quite a lot. Um,
Well, it's even funny, Brett. I have walked right past my mother and my father, my biological parents, at different times, and had I not met them, I wouldn't have known. I just walked past one going into a cinema. I walked past another at the state library, and you think, how many times did I pass them by as a kid when I was looking everywhere for them? You're always looking in every crowd, to see if they're there, and maybe I did, but I didn't know.
yeah, yeah, it's pretty wild. And when I sort of try and do the family tree, it's just monstrous. And I sort of joke that everyone else has a family tree, but I've got a family forest.
Hmm.
And the more I look, the bigger the forest. So yeah, but it's pretty cool. Like there's everyone from, a priest to a Sherpa in Nepal to, yeah, it's just wild. But the other really interesting thing was my birth mother's got two, she's got three brothers, but two of them are adopted as well. And I'm actually related to them.
Wow.
Genetically we've putting together their family, and yeah, there's just little ties to almost everyone. Yeah, which is just wild.
It's almost like the universe wanted you to stay connected in some way, isn't it?
And that's pretty much how we look at it, is that
Yeah.
it's fate or destiny or something. And this is the path, and this is the cards you dealt. So I sort of look back at in my 20s, and I'm overall pretty happy with how I handled everything. Um, Even though, it cost me a marriage, it's not. I sort of look at as I said, like the benefits now, and I'm sort of like, yeah, okay, thanks. That this is definitely the path.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it works out. Like you've just got to keep the faith, and you've just got to acknowledge that other people are going to have their reactions to whatever, and you've just got to give them time. They're not. Most people aren't going to get over things in a day or two. So that's probably been the biggest lesson for me, is just okay, that's happened. Let them sit there for a bit. I'll get back to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of has helped enormously. Um,
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, we had a Christmas up in Queensland, and there was mum and dad, my sister, and her husband and family, my birth mother, her husband, my brothers and sisters and their family, and we're all together, and we got a photo, and everyone's fine. There's no animosity, there's no anger. Yeah, so that makes up for enormous amounts, mate.
Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering, Brett, if you're comfortable reflecting on this. Has your adoption experience influenced your own decisions around having a family?
Yep. I'd like to say no, but they absolutely have. In no way would I have been able to be a father when I was in my 20s. Not a prayer. Emotionally, I just was not there. I had obviously so much more going on. Uh, I'm not really, I'm not really disappointed. Like it's not a regret. It's just life hands you things, and you've just got to take what you dealt. Like and I've always said, if I have kids, I have kids. They just haven't come. So
Mm-hmm.
that's not to say there's not them out there. They might be out there. It runs in the family, Joe. But yeah, it's not. It hasn't been a priority, shall I say?
Yeah.
Yeah, that trying to piece together the life has been what my focus has been.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and it does allow me to do awesome things like go on the Camino and without stress. um,
Can you tell us a bit about that?
oh yeah, that was just amazing. It's something I've always wanted to do. And I just haven't been in a position, and I turned 50, and I just said to the boss, hey, this is what I want to do. And he's kind of like, what? I don't know. I just got to do it. Um, and it was pretty cool. He actually paid for the tickets. So
Oh, wow. Great boss.
yeah, yeah, good man, very good man. Um, so yeah, and I had no idea what to expect. I've got a few friends that have done it, but I didn't really quiz them. I just wanted to explore this on my own. Um, and just seeing the architecture and knowing that you're walking through towns and cities that have been there for infinitely longer than Australia has even been a country,
Mm-hmm.
was pretty humbling. Um, and then to see Oh, it was so cool. There was a town where very small, and we had this special mass for pilgrims. And the priest comes out in full old school Benedictine monastery sort of gear and gives us this benediction and stuff. And um, it was awesome little things like that, but it was good to sort of get away and just remind myself of who I really am. I don't know.
Hmm.
Um, because I've traveled so much, it's sort of in the DNA. And
Hmm.
I've been here now for 4 years or 5 years, and I've been in the job for 9 years. And it's the longest I've ever been in a job, all one place in my life.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so I don't know what happens from here, Joe. I've never done it.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? And I mean, like I said at the beginning, you're not the first adopted person I know of to have done the Camino or done some other kind of significant milestone, adventure or something. And sometimes I think it takes stepping out of our lives and into something different to really quieten the noise and really do to get in touch with who we are. And I really do think that's one of the biggest challenges for us as adoptees is to identify who we are. And, as many people as we meet and everything, sometimes you just need the noise to stop so you can get a bit calm with who you are at the heart of you.
Yeah, oddly, oddly that's where I find my calm,
Mm.
because I've traveled so much. And I mean, that's not the first adventure I went on. I ran off to Scotland for a couple of years with, I think I had about $600. Um, just that I don't know how, but that's where that's my calm.
Mm.
It's this that is where the stress and
Hmm.
that's where I find things start, you overthink things and all the rest of it. Yeah, I think it's just the dad being in the Air Force. Has just sort of led me to being that person.
Mm.
Well, that's what I thought anyway. And then when I found when Therese found out her grandfather, um, or my grandfather, he was a he I think he'd been ordained a priest that day, and he taught English to immigrant kids in Papua New Guinea.
Wow.
So
And
yeah,
that's what you do. You teach English to
yeah, not in
immigrants.
Papua New Guinea, but
Yeah.
that was the plan. That was the plan to
Yeah.
go overseas. So yeah, I don't know why, but that over there is my calm for some reason.
Hmm.
It's the misadventure that somehow calms me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's the reliance on yourself more than anybody. Maybe there's something there, but yeah, it's here that it's been the struggle, just
Yeah.
doing the grind.
Yeah. I get that. So I'm wondering if you have any words of wisdom or thoughts you'd like to share with others who might be starting their search or exploring their adoption story. And I might just add a little disclaimer there. I'm particularly thinking of men because um, making a sweeping generalization, men often don't talk about things and they might just sit and have all this inner stuff going on and not reach out or take the steps, will be so frightened of what they might find on the other side that they don't take the steps, or maybe let a wife stop them from doing something. I don't know. Just, do you have any wisdom that you could impart?
There's two parts to that. The first part is um, when when the I remember at that adoption conference that I spoke of earlier, and were the apology had been passed around, and people were looking and making sure it's okay. The thing that's really struck me was the original version had no mention of men,
Mm-hmm.
and so in big red ink, I just wrote, "Where are the men?"
Mm-hmm.
And if you listen to the apology, we're at the end, and it's almost like a tack on. Um, the thing that's really struck me is it's only uh, it's only in the last couple of years that I think men have really started sort of not been hated, I guess, or being started to be accepted. And that's fine. Like, there's obviously a lot of anger and stuff there. But if you're just starting out, have the courage, absolutely have the courage. And just be patient, allow other people their reactions. Some are going to be awesome, some are not going to be awesome, and that's fine. You can always come back to others, and let them have their little way. But you've got to be able to speak up, and you've got to be able to speak your truth, because for too long, especially in this country, there's been this narrative that mothers are more important than fathers. And so consequently, men have just sort of been shuffled off to the side. And that's not the truth. Like, it's 50-50. Kids need their dads as well. And so start speaking up. Start being a man. Like, at the worst you're going to find is a door is closed, and that's okay. At least now that you know that door's closed. It far beats going through life with a question mark. Yeah. So yeah, just that.
Thanks. And there are support services available now too. So, whether it be peer support or picking up the phone and ringing a FAST service, a forced adoption support service or something, you can reach out if you want to, and have someone on the other end of the phone too to listen.
Yeah, today's really good for that, I must admit. Seeing, obviously places like yours, but just around the country, there's now so much support for men and mental health. And yeah, I think more men should be if they need it, absolutely reach out. Absolutely go and do it. But yeah, don't be afraid of who you are, because that's what the journey is. It's trying to find out who you are.
Look, Brett, thank you so much for sharing your story, and with such honesty and heart. And it's been a real privilege to hear your experience. And I know that your words are going to resonate with many of our listeners. And to everyone tuning in, every adoption story is different and every story matters. And if you're looking for support or resources or simply a space to be heard, please know that Jigsaw Queensland is here for you. And if you'd like to support the podcast, leave a review, share this episode, or get in touch, because we really do love hearing from our listeners. And if you have your own story to share, just head to our Adopt Perspective podcast page on the Jigsaw Queensland website and fill out our prospective guest form. And thank you for listening. I'm Jo Sparrow. Take care and bye for now. Thanks for listening to the Adopt Perspective podcast. If you'd like to find out more, go to the podcast page on www.jigsawqueensland.com, and you'll find a wealth of information and resources on the website. If you reside in Queensland, you can reach Jigsaw Queensland's Forced Adoption Support Service on toll-free 1800 210313, or you can call Jigsaw on 07 33 58 6666. If you live in another state of Australia, you can still call the Forced Adoption Support Service number, and your call will be answered by the Forced Adoption Support Service in the state that you're calling from. In every other state, Relationships Australia operates this service. A big thank you to Matt Sparrow for composing and recording our original theme music. Until next time, I'm Jo Sparrow saying farewell from Adopt Perspective, a podcast for anyone affected by adoption.